All right, so let's talk a little bit about how many games each SEC team faces against top 25 competition moving forward, or top 25 national championship odds
Yeah.
for the 2025 season. I thought this was really, really interesting. I saw it on Twitter. You know, the team with the very most is 9. The team with the least is 4. But let's just kind of run down this conference. So Tennessee sees 4 teams that have top 25 national championship odds. Texas has 5. Ole Miss has 5. Missouri has 5. Auburn has 5. Georgia plays 6. Vandy, Texas A&M, South Carolina, and LSU all face 7. Mississippi State, Kentucky, Arkansas, Alabama, and Florida all face 8 teams with top 25 odds in the for national championship odds. That's freaking wild. And then Oklahoma sits at the top of this list with 9. How do we have these schedules set up so there's a team that faces 9 and teams that face 4?
I don't have a great answer for that. Some of it has to do with out of conference scheduling. I'll say that.
Okay,
and
but
to be somewhat fair to this. So on Florida's 8,
yeah,
Miami and Florida State are included in that 8. So it is daunting. And Florida State was terrible last year and went 2-10. But like Florida State has top 25 national championship odds right now. So like maybe this isn't as, I mean, you think about it. Like you think about like the teams that are going to have top 25 odds. They're going to be, the top 2 or 3 from the smaller conferences and the top 8 or so from the larger conferences. And so I think out of conference scheduling
football schedule here, because they only have 4. So let's see who they play. So they open with Syracuse. Then they play.
They play same thing they did last year. Alabama, Georgia.
I believe Georgia, UAB. They play Georgia, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Alabama. You've got to think Alabama. They have Kentucky, Oklahoma, Florida, Vanderbilt, and then New Mexico State. So I guess out of that, you're talking Florida, Oklahoma, Kentucky, and Alabama probably.
Right. So not all, I'll say this, what would be maybe more interesting on this is looking at those top 25 odds opponents, because Tennessee's counting Oklahoma on theirs. Right. And Florida's counting Florida State on theirs. And we both know that Florida State and Oklahoma aren't. Now, that still just makes it 7-3. That doesn't make it that much better. But I do think it brings some of the
I've got Oklahoma, which is sitting at the top with 9. They play Illinois State, which is obviously not one of their 9. Then they play Michigan, which is one of their 9. They play Temple. I'm guessing Temple is not.
And even Michigan. We mentioned Michigan, and that is a tough game, not to gloss over it. That is a tough game, but Michigan's not winning the national championship this year. Like, we're all aware of that. And so,
you could say if the top 25 odds for the national championship you could call that a very early top 25 poll, right? Because that's what you're saying. I mean, essentially.
So you're putting FSU in your top 25.
I mean, I'm not. Whoever wrote this stupid list is, but so Vegas. The point is, though, 9 teams on your schedule being in theory a top 25 versus 4 is crazy. They play Auburn, they play Kent State, then they've got Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, LSU.
Every single one of their SEC opponents are top 25.
Yeah, nobody did. Schedulers did not do Oklahoma the same type of favors they did Texas.
Yeah, no. And then you look at it like Tennessee. I mean, what you get some takeaways from this, Tennessee has to be playoffs or bust yet again. Mm-hmm. Like Tennessee's only 3. Now they play Syracuse, who won 10 games last year. So we'll see if Syracuse can be good again 2 years in a row. I really like Fran Brown coming from Georgia and going up there. So we'll see. But Tennessee's 3 games this year are Florida in the Swamp, Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and Georgia at home.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Those are their 3 games. Yeah. If they lose anything else, I think it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And they just, honestly, what do they need? They need to go 1-2 in those games.
Well, and they've got Nico in year 3. I mean, there's.
But the other end of it is Oklahoma. Like Brent Venables, I mean, we just talked about him taking over the DC job. Like that's really tough. Like there's a good chance he gets fired after this year if they have to play 9 teams that are in the top 25.
I just looked, and Florida's actually their 8 teams are in the top 21 too, which
Florida.
Somebody smoked crack and then put FSU in that list, but
I mean, their odds are good because of the conference they play.
yeah, that is true. That is very true.
But yeah, I mean, but I think this is what you're going to get. Like, you're just going to have years where you know,
but
where
we have to do something about, and I'm talking about this conference, right? Like you gotta fix your own conference before you worry about outside of this, but we have got to do a better job scheduling in the future. At this point, we're only doing 2 years at a time, right? So it's not like it used to be when you're scheduling 10 years ahead of time and, you put, Florida State and Miami and UCF on the schedule and you didn't know they were all three going to be good, or you did know all three were going to be good because they were when you booked them, but they aren't now. Like, it's not like that. When the SEC is only doing 2 years at a time, you've got to do a little bit better job with parity in scheduling. And I mean, I have this gripe overall with college football as well, but it's a lot harder to fix when there isn't parity between conferences. But the SEC as a whole could have done a lot better than they did this go round.
I think yes and no. I think there are some aspects of it that, like, you really don't know. Like, 2 year with how year to year college football is, a team can make a massive jump or massive fall in 2 years. Like, nobody would have predicted Kentucky off of back-to-back 10-win seasons was going to be the worst team in the SEC this year, right? Like that.
I mean, Kentucky's even on this freaking list, though.
No, but what I'm saying is Kentucky was an easy game for a lot of people last year, but we wouldn't have thought it was going to be an easy game. Missouri.
Yeah, but Vanderbilt ended up being a much tougher game.
Correct. Yeah, like, so you do get some of that nuance in it, right? Yeah. I think people thought Oklahoma would be slightly better than as awful as they are.
I'll give you an example. We talked about this past offseason a lot. We could have looked at Missouri's schedule and said they will sleepwalk to 10 wins, which they essentially did, right? And we could see that the moment the schedule came out because of how it was set up. So that's the kind of thing you can avoid. Like, I want to look at an SEC schedule and say, all right, well, I know what's going to happen in 5 of these, but I don't know the other 4. And that is when we have schedules like Missouri's, that isn't the case.
I think, so maybe you won't like this. I think the only way to truly do that would be to get rid of the rivalry games that are standard every year. And that's just not something that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because, Ole Miss is always going to get the worst team in the conference when they play Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And Florida's always going to get the best team in the conference when they play Georgia. Like, there's just no getting around that, right? So, like, you're immediately starting out. And, I mean, it's even worse for Tennessee. They have natural rivalries with Alabama and Georgia every single year, and that's not changing. And this year, these last 2 years, they played Oklahoma.
Florida, they have Florida on there every year. I would be shocked if Florida-Tennessee goes away.
Right, because what happens? Okay, so these
Florida
last
LSU
2 years
probably doesn't go away. Florida Georgia doesn't go away, and Florida Tennessee doesn't go away, which means Florida's probably playing all 3 of those teams every single year.
But how about for Tennessee? These last 2 years they played, last year and this year they played Oklahoma. If their natural rivalries with Georgia and Alabama stay, they're going to play Georgia, Alabama, and Texas in 2026.
Yeah,
like, that's ridiculous, And so Tennessee gets the light load this year, but it ain't gonna be like that for long.
We got Georgia, Texas, and LSU this year. That's not any.
I mean, I put LSU behind Alabama for sure.
I don't know. LSU not. I don't know. LSU has been historically good for a very long time, and they've won multiple national titles in the last 20 years.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put them on Alabama's level.
Alabama today, Alabama now.
I mean, they blew LSU out this year in Death Valley with a bad quarterback. I think that's kind of like the Michigan-Ohio State thing, where like LSU just can't. Like, it's just mental. They just, like Tennessee playing in the swamp. Like, they just can't do it. Like, it doesn't matter. Florida could play that game and be 4-7 at that point, and they're going to beat them. And Tennessee could be 10-2. Like,
they've had so many good back and forth games.
Who, LSU and Bama?
LSU and Bama, yeah.
I think
was the perennial game in October.
How many times has LSU won in like the last 10?
I don't know. I would have to look that up, but
it ain't many.
That's
twice in the last 10.
Is that what you pulled up? I was like, I don't have.
No, I'm not that fast.
Okay.
57 and 27 overall, and in the last 10, they've won 2. So since 2012, they won 2 of them. But I will say before that, like back in the heyday,
Yeah.
like it was more fun.
Back in my heyday, yeah.
Yeah, back when
I would watch that game before going out on University Avenue every year. Anyway,
I do think it's interesting. Sometimes we see, and then it's kind of the same thing. Who would have thought that South Carolina would be this good too?
yeah.
Right. South Carolina
Yeah.
gets added to a lot of schedules and is
Yeah.
tougher. So yeah, there's some surprises and stuff, but
Yeah. Very interesting for sure. It'll give us lots to pay attention to and focus on this off season. It's kind of fun. Maybe we'll come up with our own rankings. As this go on, scheduling wise and stuff. We'll have lots of free time this off season. So who has the easiest? Who has the hardest? We'll go from there. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. This was part of our live show. If you want more content just like this, make sure you are subscribed to A Peek Inside SEC Football. Talk to you real soon.